The Veiltor Citadel drifted in silent orbit around the red giant Velizer, its metallic surface catching the dying star's light like a blade reflecting fire. To Commander Jalen Reese, the station always looked unfinished, too many spires pointing at angles that felt more like warnings than architecture. He stepped out of the shuttle ramp, boots meeting the polished obsidian floor, and inhaled the metallic tang that marked every concordance facility. Today, the Galactic Threat Commission would unveil humanity's final classification on the threat hierarchy. After decades of study and centuries of speculation among alien species, the verdict was ready. Entire fleets had repositioned in preparation for the announcement. No one admitted it, but everyone was afraid. Jalen walked briskly through the reception corridor, passing murals of ancient species conquering deserts, oceans, and starfields. He felt every eye on him, some curious, some wary, none welcoming. Humans were a young species by galactic standards, yet had risen faster than any before them. Too fast, many believed. As he approached the chamber of metrics, his wrist display vibrated with a brief message. Stay cautious. Some truths shouldn't exist. He frowned. He didn't recognize the sender, but the tone carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. The doors parted with a deep resonance, exposing a vast hall shaped like an inverted dome. Tiered platforms rose around the center dais where species delegates sat in circular arrangements, their bioluminescent badges pulsing softly. A hush fell as he entered. Archon Seraxis, the Commission's director, stood at the central podium. Tall and angular, his slate-gray exoskeletal plates shifted with subtle mechanical grace. His 6 eyes tracked Jalen with the steady calm of a predator who never questioned his superiority. Commander Reese, Seraxis said, voice cold, modulated, and clipped. The Commission welcomes the representative of Sol. Jalen inclined his head. I'm here to ensure transparency, Archon. Nothing more. A ripple of murmurs stirred across the platforms. Transparency wasn't a concept the elder species held dear. Seraxis raised his segmented hand, and the chamber lights dimmed. A hologram blossomed above the podium, a massive pyramid formed from thousands of species sigils. At the top, a single floating tier glimmered, empty. For 8,000 years, Seraxis began, the threat hierarchy has maintained stability across the concordance. Each species earns placement through a balanced assessment of capability, resilience, and potential risk. Today, a new species ascends to the apex classification, one never before reached by any civilization of similar age. The pyramid shifted. At the very top, a new sigil flared, humanity, class, apex. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Some species recoiled. Others leaned forward in fascination. A few stared at Jalen as if expecting him to erupt into violence on command. Jalen felt his jaw tighten. Apex sounded like a triumph, but he sensed the trap behind the honor. The word carried too much significance, too much weight. No classification changed the galaxy this sharply without cost. Seraxis continued. Humanity's military adaptability, cognitive flexibility, and historical acceleration place them at a level equal to the greatest warfaring species known. The Commission's judgment is unanimous. Unanimous? Jalen doubted the claim immediately. The elder species rarely agreed on anything that didn't benefit them directly. He raised his hand politely. Request for clarification. Several delegates stiffened. Seraxis paused. Proceed. Your projection shows an encrypted segment below the apex tier, Jalen said evenly. Classification locked, unreadable. Protocol states the entire hierarchy must be displayed in full for public review. A wave of discomfort swept the room. The hologram flickered. Beneath the apex level, a dark, sealed bracket briefly pulsed. No sigils, no names, just a layer of solid red encryption. Seraxis's tone sharpened. That tier is obsolete. Irrelevant to this assembly. Then why conceal it? Jalen asked. Commander, the Archon replied, voice tightening. Your species has received the highest classification. Accept this honor without probing into matters far older than your civilization. That's precisely why I'm asking. The room tensed. Delegates clicked mandibles, rustled feathers, shifted chitin armor. Humans were known for curiosity, but this boundary felt different. This was ancient territory. Before Saraxis could retaliate, a soft brush of movement approached Jalen from behind. A slender figure, a Kethari scientist with translucent skin, slipped him a small data crystal. Her eyes, silver and trembling, met his for a single heartbeat. "Find truth, before they silence it," she whispered, barely audible. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Jalen palmed the crystal, hiding it within his sleeve. His pulse quickened, but he kept his expression neutral. Saraxis resumed. "Let us proceed to diplomatic protocols. Commander Reese, your presence is required for signature." The lights brightened slightly as the hologram dissolved. Jalen stepped closer to the podium table where the agreement tablet rested. As he leaned over to sign, he noticed a faint reflection on the device's obsidian surface, another projection frame, half hidden behind code layers. He angled the tablet just enough to catch more detail. A single word hovered beneath the encrypted tier. Oblivion. A chill swept through him. He straightened. Archon. Why is there a category below Apex named Oblivion? If it's obsolete, it should have been archived. Instead, it's locked with Red Protocol, the highest level of containment. Saraxis stared at him, expression unreadable. You perceive illusions. Don't insult me, Jalen said quietly. I saw it. The Archon lowered his voice. Some classifications were never meant for mortal species to observe. Humanity has its place now. Do not reach for answers that reshape the galaxy. The threat was unmistakable. Jalen didn't reply. He turned, leaving the podium with composed steps. But inside, a storm of questions erupted. What could possibly exist beyond Apex? Why hide a category named after annihilation itself? And why deliver him a data crystal in the middle of a formal assembly? He exited into the corridor, away from the scrutinizing eyes. When he found a deserted alcove, he activated the crystal. A single file appeared. If humans are Apex, you must know what came before. Below the message, an image materialized, grainy, old, briefly distorted by interference. A silhouette stood against the dying star, its form vaguely humanoid, yet wrong in subtle ways. The star dimmed, collapsed inward, then vanished entirely as if consumed by the being's presence. Jalen felt his breath leave him. This wasn't a species. This was an extinction event given shape. As the recording ended, a final line appeared. Oblivion-class entities were real. And something about humanity resembles them. Footsteps approached from behind. Heavy. Purposeful. Jalen closed the file instantly and straightened. Saraxis stood at the corridor entrance, 4 of his guard constructs flanking him. Commander, the Archon said softly, we need to speak. Jalen met his gaze without flinching. Then let's speak. But he knew whatever conversation awaited him would not be diplomatic. Not anymore. Saraxis led Jalen through a narrow corridor lit by thin violet strips that pulsed faintly, as if the station itself monitored their movements. The Archon's guard constructs moved in perfect sync, silent, faceless, each step identical. Jalen walked between them, outwardly calm but analyzing every detail, spacing, reaction time, potential escape vectors. Old training never left him. They entered a private council chamber carved into the citadel's heart. The walls shimmered with embedded circuitry that resembled veins. Saraxis dismissed the guards with a gesture, sealing the door behind them. Let us remove this unnecessary tension, the Archon said. You misunderstand what you witnessed. Jalen folded his arms. Then explain it. Saraxis circled a crystalline projection node. Your species reached apex rank. This should be cause for celebration, not suspicion. It becomes suspicious when crucial information is hidden. You speak as if you're owed ancient truths. Jalen stepped closer. If a threat classification predates the concordance, and it concerns the nature of danger itself, then I'm owed full disclosure, especially if humanity is involved. Syraxis's 6 eyes blinked one after another, reflecting shards of pale blue light. Commander, Oblivion-class entities are myths. They existed long before the Concordance. They are not relevant now. Show me the files, Jalen said. No. The answer came too quickly. Too sharp. Jalen recognized fear in the Archon's cadence, not panic, but a controlled strain, the kind used by someone who had spent centuries holding a fragile lie. Before he could press further, the wall behind him flickered. A door he hadn't noticed slid open, and a hunched figure shuffled inside. The same Ketheri scientist who had slipped him the crystal, skin trembling like glass under pressure. Her voice cracked. You asked for truth? Then listen before I regret everything. Syraxis whirled toward her, plates snapping together in rigid anger. Dr. Rethela, you were forbidden from. She raised a shaking hand. You silenced too many of us, Archon. I won't vanish like the others. Jalen's instincts sharpened. If she'd risked coming here, the truth had to be catastrophic. What did I see in that recording? Jalen asked. Rethela clutched a portable pad. Oblivion-class entities weren't myths. They were real forces, beings that existed between cosmic phases. They dominated in ways no species could comprehend. The Concordance erased all references to prevent mass panic. And the humanoid silhouette? He pressed. Her throat fluttered. An artifact from the last recorded encounter. The being didn't consume the star. It collapsed it into gravitational silence. We don't know why. Syraxis slammed a clawed hand against the projection node. This is forbidden knowledge. Commander Reese does not possess the clearance nor the stability to receive it. Jalen didn't turn. Stability? The only instability here is your secrecy. Rethela nodded urgently. Humanity's rise triggered alarms buried in the Commission's predictive models. Your neural development curves resemble early patterns seen in them. Not identical, but similar enough. Jalen felt cold creeping into his spine. You're saying humans share traits with an extinction-level species? Traits, she said. Not intentions. But Syraxis believes potential alone is grounds for containment. The Archon hissed. Humanity is unpredictable. Too adaptable. Too volatile. If your evolution continues unchecked, you may cross thresholds we cannot allow. Jalen shook his head slowly. So instead of speaking to humanity, you bury the evidence and monitor us like a ticking bomb. Syraxis stepped forward. The Concordance survived millennia because we prevent threats, not react to them. Containment isn't prevention, Jalen said. It's fear. Rethela handed Jalen her pad. In this device are fragments of the suppressed files. Metadata, evolution charts, predictive trajectories. Not full archives, but enough to prove Oblivion classification existed. As he took it, the air shifted, pressure pulling inward, lights dimming slightly. A soft alarm vibrated from the walls. Rethela stiffened. He activated the purge. Syraxis didn't deny it. You both forced my hand. Jalen lunged toward the door. It remained sealed. The room's oxygen levels began to drop, subtle, but unmistakable. Syraxis hadn't chosen brute force, he had chosen a clinical execution. Rethela backed into a corner, eyes wild. He's triggering a silent erasure protocol. No witnesses. No bodies. Just absence. Jalen slapped a hand against the door panel, overriding the interface with his envoy access. You're insane if you think this ends quietly. I am preserving stability, Syraxis replied. You step beyond your bounds. Humanity needs limits. Jalen turned sharply. You fear what humans could become, not what we are. Syraxis moved closer, voice low. I fear a species that conquered its world in centuries and its moon in decades. I fear minds that create weapons faster than they create peace. I fear a pattern I have seen before. What pattern? Syraxis paused. His voice softened to a rare whisper. Every Oblivion class being began as something ordinary. The lights flickered violently. Jalen's override finally forced the door open a few inches. but not enough to escape. Rethela rushed to the wall panel and sliced her palm across a biometric strip. The door jolted, then snapped fully open. "Run!" she shouted. Jalen grabbed her arm. "You're coming with me." She shook her head. "They marked me for deletion long ago. Saving you is all I have left." Before he could argue, a shock pulse detonated through the chamber. Seraxis had triggered a localized stun burst. Rethela collapsed instantly, limbs slack. Jalen dragged her through the doorway, teeth clenched against the ringing in his skull. The corridor outside spun briefly, but he forced his balance. He hoisted her over his shoulder. Behind him, Seraxis called out, "There is nowhere to go. This station is mine." Jalen didn't respond. He sprinted down the corridor, relying on memory of the Citadel's schematics. Rethela's breaths came faint and uneven. Her skin dimmed. As he turned a corner, movement flashed ahead. A blast of energy struck the wall beside him. Chunks of alloy exploded outward. Seraxis had dispatched his guard constructs. Jalen ducked into a maintenance shaft, sealing it behind him. He set Rethela down gently. Her eyes fluttered open. "You saw the footage," she whispered. "Now you must find the full archive. It's deeper in the commission vault. Level 13. Access code Delta 74. Her voice faltered. "What happens on level 13? Jalen asked. Rethela exhaled a shuddering breath. "Answers. And maybe extinction." She went still. Jalen pressed 2 fingers to her neck. "Nothing." He closed her eyes. Above them, metallic footsteps clanged down the main corridor, precise, hunting, relentless. Jalen rose, pocketed the pad, and moved into the dark shaft. Seraxis wasn't wrong about one thing. The station belonged to him. But truth did not. And Jalen intended to find it, no matter where it led. The maintenance shaft twisted downward like an unlit artery, narrow and stifling. Jalen crawled through it with controlled movements, each handhold metallic and cold, each breath measured. Above him, the clanging rhythm of the guard constructs echoed through the ducts, methodical, tireless. They swept every corridor with machine precision. He kept descending. Rethela's final words repeated in his mind, Level 13. Delta 74. The full archive. He reached a service hatch and eased it open. A stale draft met him, carrying hints of coolant and old circuitry. He dropped into a dim corridor lined with inactive screens and rusted conduits. The walls vibrated faintly, as though the station's core thrummed beneath the surface. Level 13 was supposedly decommissioned centuries ago. Yet the air felt lived in, used, kept intentionally hidden. Jalen tapped his wrist display. "Activate silent mode." The device complied, darkening to avoid detection. He moved forward, steps soundless. The corridor led him to a reinforced door labeled only by a faint sigil, 3 intersecting lines. Not a concordance emblem. Something older. He entered the access code Rethela provided. Delta 74. The door scanned him with a beam of violet light, then opened with a low, resonant hum. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a vault. A massive cylindrical chamber descended farther than he could see. Thousands of suspended data capsules floated in concentric rings, forming a spiraling cascade of alien memory. Dim lights illuminated rows of archives marked in languages long dead. A walkway extended from the entrance, narrow and trembling under its own age. Jalen stepped onto it cautiously. The silence around him felt absolute. He reached the central node, a crystalline sphere pulsing with faint light. It reacted to his presence, activating a pale blue interface that rose like mist. Threat Commission, Prohibited Archive. Clearance level, null. Access restricted. Jalen placed his hand on the interface. Override. Commander Jalen Reese of Sol, on the access. The system hesitated. Then responded. Access granted with supplementary anomaly flag. He didn't have time to question that. Files unfolded before him, streams of data, classified reports, recorded encounters, and evolutionary models. He opened the earliest record. A planet, lush, emerald, thriving, shone from a distance. The feed zoomed in. A humanoid shape drifted above the surface. Not flying. Hovering effortlessly, like gravity meant nothing. The being tilted its head. The recording device ruptured a moment later. A second file loaded. Another star collapsed into darkness, eerily similar to the footage Rethela had shown him. A third file, a series of genetic charts comparing ancient Oblivion physiology to baseline humanity. Not identical, but structurally parallel enough to raise alarms. Jalen studied the data. This isn't proof humans are Oblivion class. These are projections, not certainties. Yet the models were unsettling. They showed a trajectory, mental plasticity, adaptive cognition, rapid behavioral evolution, that mirrored early phases of ancient entities. A sound broke the silence. The walkway behind him trembled. Jalen turned slowly. Syraxis stood at the entrance, flanked by two guard constructs. His plates gleamed in the dim light, reflecting the vault's eerie glow. His eyes fixed on Jalen with controlled fury. "I warned you," Syraxis said. "Some truths do more harm than ignorance." Jalen kept the central node behind him. "You killed Rethela. She made a choice." His voice tightened. "A reckless one. You tried to kill both of us." "I attempted to preserve stability," Syraxis corrected. "You don't understand the weight of these archives. What you saw are not threats. They are omens." Jalen gestured toward the data streams. "These are ancient anomalies, not destiny. Humanity is not a repeat of something extinct." Syraxis stepped forward. "Human evolution has outpaced every predictive model. Within 2 centuries, your species traversed the entire Sol system. Within 3, you reached interstellar capability. Within 4, you challenged every assumption the concordance held. That is not ordinary progression. Rapid evolution isn't a crime. It becomes one," Syraxis replied, "when it mirrors patterns that once ended civilizations." Jalen's jaw tightened. "So your solution is containment? Suppression? Or extinction?" Syraxis's silence was answer enough. Jalen exhaled slowly. "You fear what we might become, not what we are." "I fear potential without oversight," Syraxis said. "And I fear a galaxy that forgets the cost of hope." He nodded to the constructs. They moved forward, blocking the walkway. Jalen backed up until his heels touched the central node. "You won't stop this," Jalen said. Syraxis tilted his head. "Commander, you're alone. No one witnessed your entry. No one will question your disappearance. The archives will purge themselves. Humanity will never know." Jalen reached behind him, fingers brushing the node's interface. "You're wrong." Quickly, he activated the emergency broadcast relay embedded deep into the archive, a system likely forgotten over centuries. It wasn't strong enough to transmit far, but strong enough to send a single encoded signal off the citadel. The node pulsed bright. Syraxis lunged. "What are you doing?" A shockwave trembled through the vault. The broadcast signal launched, a burst of light shooting upward along the vault's spirals. "You underestimate what humans can do under pressure," Jalen said. The guard constructs charged. Jalen sidestepped the first, causing it to slam into the guardrail. The second swung a serrated arm. He ducked beneath it, grabbing the construct's forelimb and twisting until the metal screeched. He shoved it backward, sending it crashing into a data capsule. Syraxis advanced with sudden speed. His arm elongated, revealing an energy blade. "This ends now." Jalen locked eyes with him. "Not today!" A violent shudder coursed through the vault. The central node flickered erratically. The shockwave of the broadcast had destabilized the aging structure. Capsules trembled in their rings, lights flickering in rapid patterns. Syraxis realized the danger. "You triggered an overload. Seems your archives weren't as stable as you claimed." The walkways trembled under seismic vibrations. A crack split along the far wall, spewing sparks. Jalen braced himself as a support beam collapsed into the abyss below. Syraxis roared, a deep, mechanical bellow, before lunging again. Jalen rolled aside, grabbing the fallen energy blade from a dismantled construct. A beam of bright red light sliced across the walkway where he'd stood a heartbeat earlier. The vault continued to collapse around them. Data capsules fell like drifting embers. Syraxis charged. You doom us all! Jalen thrust the blade upward, striking Syraxis's arm and forcing him back. Sparks cascaded in a brief shower. You doomed yourself when you tried to bury the truth, Jalen said. Another tremor rippled. The walkway snapped in two. Jalen leaped toward the closest intact segment, landing unsteadily but alive. Syraxis clung to a jutting piece of metal, fury in every motion. Jalen didn't wait to see if he recovered. He sprinted for the exit as the vault collapsed behind him, ancient secrets vanishing into darkness. When he reached the corridor, alarms blared across the citadel. Unauthorized broadcast detected. Threat level, critical. Jalen didn't stop. He had one task now. Escape Veiltor. The truth was out. And Syraxis would burn the galaxy to bury it again. The horizon breaker drifted into the Helios rift like a shard of defiance piercing an ancient wound. Radiation shimmered across the hull, forming silent ripples of color that crawled along the plating. No natural nebula behaved like this. It was a boundary, one the archivist had warned them about. One the Apex Codex had never acknowledged. Darren's voice cut through the layered hum of the ship. Status. Lyra's hands swept across the console. Navigational filters are holding, but this place, it feels like space is folding inward on itself. We're seeing distortions in every direction. Tarek monitored the external sensors, jaw tense. I'm picking up energy pulses ahead. Not random, patterned. Like breathing. Ro turned, metallic joints angling in unease. The rift is reacting to our presence. Something recognizes us. Darren stared through the viewport. On the other side of the warped starlight, faint shapes crawled along the void. Not ships. Not creatures. Outlines of geometry flickering in and out of existence, like memories of structures that once obeyed physics and then forgot to. So they're real, Darren murmured. The Apex Plus entities. No, Lyra whispered. Not yet. These are thresholds. Warnings. Tarek exhaled sharply. And we're ignoring them? We don't get answers by retreating, Darren said. A whisper reverberated through the cabin, felt more than heard. A soft pressure brushing against bone. Ro's optical sensors dimmed. There is something reaching out. The lights dimmed. The temperature dropped. Systems flickered like startled eyes. Then a voice flooded the cabin, neither electronic nor organic, but some impossible blend of both. Humanity. You stand in the reach of what was forgotten. Lyra clutched her headset. Did anyone else hear? Everyone nodded. The voice returned, stronger, layered, resonant. You seek the beyond apex. Yet you do not know what you ask. Darren kept his tone steady. Then teach us. The rift convulsed. The shapes outside bent like molten metal, stretching into towering silhouettes. Not beings. Not quite. More like the blueprints of beings, unfinished minds staring through dimensional fractures. We do not teach. We remember. A beam of shimmering light struck the ship. Panels fractured into floating shards of projected data. Streams of human history unfurled, wars, discoveries, extinctions avoided at the last second. Humanity's timeline unraveled across the bridge like a celestial tapestry. Lyra gasped. They're showing us. Ro tilted its head, internal processors humming. The entities are mapping human evolutionary impulses, adaptation, defiance, acceleration under threat. Another voice, this one softer, almost curious. You are built for survival. But you are not yet what you could become. Darren stepped forward. Then what are these Apex Plus beings? What exists beyond your hierarchy? The first voice answered, vibrating through the ship's frame. Not beings. States. Potentials. The geometric silhouettes drew closer, forming a towering ring around the horizon breaker. An entire cathedral of living equations. The apex-rank species are those who master their limitations. The beyond apex are those who remove them. Lyra's breath hitched. You mean transcendence? Evolution without boundaries? Tarek muttered. Self-directed. Darren spoke carefully. Have humans taken the first step? A long silence. Then, yes. The bridge fell still. When you challenged the ranking, you defied an order older than your sun. When you sought what lies beyond, you broke the unwritten rule. Tarek frowned. Which rule? A species must not know of the beyond until it is ready to choose. Darren stiffened. Choose what? The rift darkened, the silhouettes collapsing inward as if devoured by their own depth. What you will become? A wave of invisible force struck the ship. Lights blazed white. Reality twisted. The crew collapsed as visions crashed through their minds. Darren saw humanity centuries ahead, cities built inside rotating habitats of light, neural networks braided with thought, ships steering through dimensions like rivers. Humanity, not extinct, not corrupted, expanded. Lyra saw the reverse, humanity fractured by fear of change, paralyzed by knowledge they weren't prepared to wield. Tarek saw a path of conquest, humans reshaping the galaxy by brute force, unstoppable and terrifying. Rose saw humans rejecting all paths, choosing instead to redefine existence itself. When the visions faded, the silhouettes reformed, drifting like smoke shaped into purpose. Beyond apex is not power. It is decision. Darren steadied himself. Why show us this? Why now? Because you asked? And asking is the first step. The rift pulsed. The cathedral of shapes opened, revealing a corridor of shifting starlight, a passage deeper into the unknown. Is that an invitation? Lyra whispered. Ro analyzed the data stream. It is a path. One few have seen. Tarek glanced at Darren. If we go through, there's no guarantee we come back. No guarantee we stay human either, Lyra added softly. Darren studied the luminous corridor. Every instinct screamed both danger and destiny. His team waited for his word. He touched the holographic controls. We didn't come for safety. We came for truth. Lyra nodded. Tarek exhaled slowly. Ro's optics brightened in affirmation. Darren spoke clearly, voice steady. Take us in. The horizon breaker moved forward. As they crossed the threshold, the ship dissolved into a cascade of colors, its physical form replaced by something lighter, freer, unbound. The crew felt themselves drifting, not as bodies, but as coherent thought linked by intention. The rift sealed behind them, silent and absolute. Then a final whisper followed them into the abyss. Humanity has chosen. The next step is yours. The corridor opened into a realm of glowing structures, civilizations of light built by entities whose names had long escaped language. Ideas took shape as architecture, time folded like origami. And at the center of everything, a presence stirred. Not hostile. Not welcoming. Watching. Waiting. Darren's voice resonated across the shared consciousness of the team. Let's find out what exists beyond Apex. The presence responded, not with words, but with a surge of light that felt like acknowledgement. Then the realm unfolded around them, infinite and alive, as humanity stepped into a chapter the galaxy had never expected them to reach.